southwest of Burlington. This is a storm that we have been tracking now for about the last 30 minutes or so. Right now, it's just moving through Keokuk, but also heading towards Fort Madison. This tornado warning is for that exact area. So you got Donaldson in there, Fort Madison, Carthage, Keokuk, just on the fringe of our viewing area here to the south and west. That's going to go until 11 o'clock, so the top of the hour. That's our area of concern number one. But the other area of concern I have is within this line that I'm showing you here on radar. There have been multiple reports of winds in excess of 75 to 80 miles per hour. So not only do we have the threat of tornadoes, we also have the threat for some widespread wind damage. And I'm going to put a tracker on this so you can see exactly the region of this line that I'm talking about, because it is going to be heading for areas like La Harpe, Burlington. Eventually Monmouth will be in here. Roseville, those of you that have students and family at Western Illinois University in Macomb, it's going to be heading for you as well. And for areas off to the east. So let's put the track on the whole line itself. Then we're going to focus on where the rotation is. So this is an early heads up, especially for Monmouth, about 40 minutes away, about 26 minutes from Macomb. And we're now less than 15 minutes away from this getting into Burlington. So I want to focus next on where actually the velocity scans are taking some of the rotation here. So I'm going to peel off a couple of the layers. We're really going to get in here to the radar. And we've been noticing a couple areas of rotation, one actually right on top of Fort Madison, if you will, where you're seeing the blues and you're seeing the greens come together right here. We also have another area of rotation here to the southwest of La Harpe. That's going to be another area to watch. But this is a very similar event to what we had on Saturday, where we could see these quick, brief spin-up tornadoes. The only thing is, these are going to be quite hard to see because they are going to be wrapped in rain with so much moisture that's now streaming into the area, not to mention the smoke that we still have left in our sky. I want to take you on a further tour here while we continue to watch that and show you what other warnings we have in progress. There is also a severe thunderstorm warning that's still in place for northern parts of Henry County, Iowa side, of course. That's until the top of the hour as well, so 10 minutes left on that. This warning does also extend into the western portions of Louisa County. Does include Wapello and southwest of Conesville. Let's put the radar on here so you can see exactly why. This has mainly been for a damaging wind and hail threat. Let's go ahead and plot some of the hail debris, if you will, or hail tracker, if you will, to show you where that concentration is likely going to be. And there you see, there's quite a swath of this. Hail was the other high threat that we were tracking for today, and it's no wonder the warning has been issued, especially when you get south here of Columbus Junction, where you're seeing some of the blues and the lighter greens. That's indicating where hail is certainly likely falling from the sky. We can actually take a look at the hail size tracker. Not too impressive right now, but likely there is at least some small hail falling from that storm. But wow, what a big difference when you go to this monster of a storm that is sitting just south of Fort Madison, Iowa, heading off to the northeast. You can see a big difference in the hail size here. We're talking hail approaching 2 inches in diameter, which would be about tennis ball size. Nonetheless, that you're combining that with 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts, so that will cause significant damage. That's our highest area of concern right there with that storm sitting right over Montrose, which is south of Fort Madison. So let's put the tracker back on that, at least for the hail potential, and show you where that thing is going to be heading, because that's going to be a big heads up for those of you that are in the path of this. You need to get that vehicle inside, especially when we're talking about hail about 2 inches in diameter, tennis ball size, for goodness sake. So there you see, La Harpe, we're about 26 minutes away. Blandesville, we've got 33 minutes, and then we're going to head that off further to the north and the east. And if this thing holds together, we could be talking about an impact to Roseville eventually. But take a look at the lightning. I think this is honestly the most lightning we have seen in any storm so far this season. This thing is electrified. It is strong, it is severe, and it is definitely bringing significant impacts to the region. Let's peel away some more of these layers, put the radar into motion so you can get an idea of where this thing is heading. I mean, it is quite a sizable storm. We're talking about this thing covering a lot of real estate, not to mention that the storm itself is now starting to show that classic Boeing signature. And I'm going to point that out to you right here. If you look at where Carthage is, right along Route 136, that's where we're seeing the kind of the area of the storm that's protruding forward the most compared to the rest of it. So that means the damaging wind threat for Macomb is going to increase substantially here in about the next 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, that is a classic signature for some very, very strong wind. So that is why this particular severe warning here, severe thunderstorm warning from Roseville to Macomb, that's our greatest area of concern right now for not only wind, but the potential that we could see an embedded tornado as well. Don't forget, we have that tornado warning going until the top of the hour for parts of Des Moines County there, and also getting into just southwest of Henderson County. So very, very fast moving storm system. If you are under the severe thunderstorm warning, that's to the east of this, say east of Carthage and near La Harpe, I would treat this as a tornado warning, because we have had on more than one occasion reports of estimated winds of 80 miles an hour or greater. That is tornado-like damage when you have that kind of wind velocity that you're working with. Strongest winds right now, no surprise, right at the point of where that storm is. So right in here where you're seeing these really, really light blues on your screen, that's where the strongest wind gusts are right now. Radar is estimating those to be about 77 miles per hour south of Fort Madison. This is all moving up to the northeast. So that's another thing we're going to be watching. Do you want to bring to your attention too, the severe thunderstorm watch has been expanded further north. It now does include the immediate Quad Cities. There you see it there. Includes both Scott and Rock Island County. This severe thunderstorm watch has also been expanded further eastward. So Whiteside, Henry, Bureau County. You also have Stark and Knox County included in this too. That watch will go until 5 o'clock this evening, but I can tell you based on radar, these storms are moving pretty quickly, and they will likely be out of our region here, likely by 1, if not 2, this afternoon. They're moving at a pretty good clip. Some more severe storms to talk about, including that severe thunderstorm warning that stretches just to the west here of Wapello. That's going to be not only for a small hail threat, but mainly a wind threat. We're seeing gusts up to 60 miles an hour with that particular batch of storms. Also some really heavy rain is likely falling with these two. Not that we're going to complain about that. We certainly need the rain. What we don't want are the 80-mile-an-hour winds and the large hail. But on that current trajectory, you'll notice we're taking a little bit more of a northerly turn. So we're going to be talking about this batch here with the 60-mile-an-hour winds and the hail getting into the Quad Cities very shortly. So let's put the stop on this. Let's put the track on this part of the storm, because this is the one that's going to be coming up for the Quad City Metro. So let's go ahead and we'll draw our track here, pull it up to the north and to the east, because we're starting to get at least a little bit more of a northward movement on this, and that's going to put it just at the edge of the Quad Cities. You're talking Muscatine about 24 minutes from now. Then we'll move it to West Liberty within the next half hour, Edgington, and likely here in the Quad Cities, I'm thinking just shortly after 11:30, if not close to about 11:45. So that's when we're going to start to see some potential severe weather here in the metro. Until then, we're not seeing anything in the immediate Quad Cities. All of this so far has been to the south and to the west of us. But I mean, the amount of lightning just continues to impress me here. I mean, that is such an impressive display. Looks like we did get an update to the tornado warning now, and they have actually expanded it a little bit further now to the north and east. This does include Macomb, actually a good chunk of northern McDonough County there, all the way through Bushnell, right along Route 41. So if you're in Macomb, you need to be taking shelter regardless if it was a tornado warning or not, because again, this storm has had 80-mile-per-hour winds estimated and observed by spotters that are on the ground looking at this storm. So treat it as a tornado warning. Even if you're in the severe thunderstorm warning, say south of Macomb, still I think you should be in your basement. And also the fact that we could be seeing up to tennis ball size hail at times with this storm. Very, very violent situation. Make sure you're underground. If you don't have that basement, again, you want to be in that interior room. Let's go back to the hail tracker and see if we've seen anything change with that in terms of the probability of seeing hail or the size. It is really impressive. I mean, we're almost off the charts here when it comes to the probability of hail near Fort Madison, Carthage, just south of Dallas City. That's an impressive signature, and that tells us that, yeah, we have very high confidence that there's definitely some larger hailstones that are going to be falling from the sky here. Let's go back to the hail size tracker right now. It looks like the damaging hail just sitting to the north and east of Carthage here to the west of Hancock. And if you look at the scale on your screen, that's about 2 inches in diameter. That's an impressive size, no doubt. So if you don't have the vehicle in the garage quite yet and you're kind of to the east of Carthage a little bit, yeah, I think it would be a good idea to go outside and go ahead and get that inside if you can, or under the carport. Further to the north, it really hasn't been too much of a hail threat with that severe weather. That's just roughly along Interstate 80. That's more of a wind threat and also a heavy rain threat too. So we'll pull up the warnings here and go back over the radar. We've got Chief Meteorologist James Zahara here helping me out. We'll get you some team coverage as these storms are coming through. And James, I got to tell you that the lightning, I think, is the most I've seen with any of our storms so far this season.
I've noticed that, yeah, in the past half hour or so, we've been noticing a very active scene going on to our south and west. With these showers and thunderstorms, especially areas to our south, right there down in around Lee County, Iowa, and farther southward heading into around Egerton, we see that, and an impressive cluster of these showers and thunderstorms and just the lightning that's going on with it. Just shows you the dynamics that are taking place within that cluster of thunderstorm activity that is now lurking in areas from Fort Madison down to Carthage. And you can see now just west of Macomb where we have extended that tornado warning out for those areas going in the next hour or so. So a very dangerous situation taking place. And of course, not only are we dealing with the heavy rain and the lightning taking place, but very likely maybe even a rain-wrapped type of spin that is taking place within the warnings that we see here, especially outside of Carthage and even around Fort Madison as well. So once again, we're going to keep an eye on the velocity here, and a pretty decent signature that we are seeing just around the Fort Madison area, seeing that kind of the green and red kind of real close together and the brightness behind it as well. That is a big concern. Now keep in mind, we're getting reports from this particular storm of tree damage, limbs are down, power outages as well. So very likely we're dealing with kind of a rain wrap situation here between Fort Madison and Dallas City. And I believe that continues to make its way generally off to the east-northeast, Andrew. Is that correct, at least as of last check?
Yeah, let's go ahead and throw the loop on there so you can kind of see how that's evolving. It looks like, yeah, east-northeast.
Yeah, east-northeast. So let's kind of zoom out a little bit here and actually go ahead and put a tracker on this because, well, folks, that's what we do. We want to track these storms, whether they may be twisters, maybe a line of severe winds, even hail as well. We're going to track this for you. So Andrew's going ahead and tracking this, given the speed of this, and I believe the wind speed is about, what, 45 or 50 miles an hour, or has that changed as well? Not sure on that.
67.
67 miles an hour. This is moving very quickly. So if you're watching us in Dallas City, of course, La Harpe, Raritan as well, be on the lookout. There is a signature of a spin that is going on here from our velocity mode. So a very dangerous situation. We haven't actually had a situation here where we are actually seeing a very distinct signature when it comes to this particular storm. So once again, take cover, get to your safe place. Always make sure you put a lot of walls between you and the storm outside. More importantly, don't try and find the storm or the twister, okay? You want to make sure you're in your safe place. We have professionals out there, veteran chasers who are giving us that information. They are actually positioning themselves in a place where they're not going to get impacted by that part of the storm. So that's what we're seeing here. A lot of heavy rain. You know, we've been talking about how areas south of the Quad Cities really need the rain. I mean, we're talking severe drought. Well, we're going to get it in a big way. We just don't want it to produce any flooding. And unfortunately, we may be seeing this with this cluster as it continues to make its way off to the east. Also, I think this is a brand new warning that we have here, Andrew, for parts of Louisa County. And looks like Henry County, Iowa as well. This has the possibility of actually producing a tornado as well. This is until around 11:45. Winds actually could be projected around 60 miles an hour. Hail size, not too bad, but we're concerned about the twisting that is going on here. We have some decent shear going on within the storm itself, but right now, as we see from our latest velocity mode, if we had to pick a choice, where we could be seeing some possible rotation. What do you say, Andrew? I think that's kind of it right there, just west of Wayland there. And that continues to make its way generally off to the east-northeast. Let's put a tracker on this one as well and extend that even farther outside of the box because likely, given the history we've been noticing with these storms, they continue to expand even farther eastward with these boxes. So if we had to go into Mercer County, given the latest speed, and direction of it. We're talking about possibly impacting Wapello here in about less than 45 minutes. Aledo got a lot of time here, but if it does hold together, okay, the potential is there in just over an hour and 10 minutes, you'll be impacted by that storm. But no doubt, I think we're seeing some type of little spin in the atmosphere there with that particular cell that continues to make its way off to the east-northeast and likely moving as fast as around 60 miles an hour or so. That's been kind of the average speed we've been getting with these storms as they continue to make its way off to the east. Let's go back to the reflectivity mode, because I know we got people from the immediate Quad Cities, points eastward, wanting to know, hey, is it going to impact me? Well, likelihood that's going to be the case. So here's the Quad Cities here. There's the I-80 corridor. And as Andrew just mentioned, this part of the storm right here is kind of expanding a bit more to the north and east, okay? Kind of moving in this general direction. In fact, I think, Andrew, you went ahead and put even a tracker on that as well. And if we go ahead and just put a general track going right through the Quad Cities itself and points south and east, yeah, we're talking about that's how it's kind of going to be laid out here if everything holds true. So we're talking about the immediate Quad Cities being impacted by this line of showers and thunderstorms in about a half an hour. Okay, once again, in about a half an hour, we're talking about, given the speed that we have with this storm and its direction, we're talking about a half an hour. Kewaunee, okay, I've already had some viewers on my Facebook page actually asking me, hey, James, is it going to hit Kewaunee or is it going to hit Galva? And we're talking about less than an hour, given the speed that we have with the system. Clinton, we're talking about over an hour. And Sterling Rock Falls, yeah, we have projected this all the way out into eastern Whiteside County. So we're talking, I would say, close to an hour and a half, if it does hold together as far as the severity side of it all. Okay, so that's the line of storms that we're keeping an eye on. We've had reports, I think we've had a history of this, Andrew. You can help me out on this. You've been reading my mind. When it comes to not just as far as wind damage, but even the hail as well. Do you have any updates on that, especially with the activity that's going on around Lee County, Iowa?
Yeah, we're definitely getting a lot of reports, I'd say, back in from Carthage. It looks like several trees thrown across the road. Power lines are down. We're also getting more damage reports also coming in kind of from that same area within Lee County, too, or near Fort Madison. Also reporting tree limbs down, and they're estimating 80-mile-per-hour winds.
Wow.
With that complex of storms pushing through.
In fact, we can actually, this is how we're able to figure these out, folks, is that we're able to just kind of click onto one of these, and that kind of gives us what the latest report has come in from one of the chasers. So here's a great example. I think this is the one just outside of Keokuk, I believe. So a thunderstorm wind gusts around 16 miles an hour. We're talking about 74 miles an hour around Montrose. And let's go to Fort Madison if we can. Keokuk, 80-mile-an-hour wind gust. My goodness. It doesn't have to spin, folks, to create damage. Always remember that. Doesn't have to spin, all right? And around Fort Madison, reports has had thunderstorm wind damage. So that's the nice thing about having this nice tool is we can break it down as far as the reports that have been coming out from the chasers, from emergency management in those areas, kind of giving us a good history of what this storm has been doing and what it could be capable of doing as it continues to make its way off to the east. It is just lighting up with all that lightning. Don't be surprised if we're getting power outages popping up briefly, though, in some areas to our south with all the lightning that's taking place here. So if you are in the path of this storm, more importantly, if you are in this severe thunderstorm watch, which covers right along the I-80 corridor and points southward, okay, everything may be quiet now, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. Check your flashlights, okay, make sure they're fully charged, okay, because there is that possibility that these storms may briefly turn off the power in your household, okay? So just keep that in mind. And here's that latest severe thunderstorm watch. We were kind of wondering if they were going to actually expand it farther northward, given the latest turn now of this storm. So not surprised that we're seeing right here with the severe thunderstorm watch all the way to about 5 p.m. But really, I think when it comes to our local area, I think we're talking about an event that will probably end sometime maybe about 1, 2, maybe 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, especially for areas more east of here, okay? Maybe even a little earlier, given the speed now we're noticing with these storms. So I would talk about maybe a 2 o'clock event for areas around maybe the Bureau County area, around Princeton and Walnut. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and go right back to the warnings that are taking place. If you're just joining us, nonstop coverage that we have here, folks, because not only do we have numerous severe fast-moving thunderstorms with warnings popping up, but also some tornado warnings that are popping up as well. And those are now being focused in areas just south of the Quad Cities. This tornado warning until about 11:30, that impacts cities such as La Harpe, Media, Roseville, even going into Strongers. There's Roseville right there. There's 67, okay, and that is until around 11:30 a.m. Confirmed tornado on the ground just around the La Harpe area, okay? That's until around 11:30 a.m., okay? And then hail size, we're still talking about maybe a good solid inch. Could be even higher. We've had reports of even larger hail from this storm farther off to the west. And you can see the hail size that is really popping up in areas just off to our south and east, especially outside of Carthage. So if we look at that green and a bright green area, help me out here, Andrew, is that golf ball size or pink golf ball size?
That's going to be golf ball, yeah.
That would be golf ball size. So yeah, just outside of Hancock and slowly pushing his way off toward the east. There's Macomb right there, Western Illinois University right there. So we're seeing that wave kind of making its way from west to east and very likely will impact Macomb here in just about 20 minutes. That is Macomb right there, and you can see that the wind is really starting to pick up. The rain is starting to blast on in, you know, I wouldn't be surprised, Andrew, because of all the lightning that we're seeing. We might even talking about some power outages. I mean, it looks like night over there now, and look at that wind really starting to pick up. Keep in mind, this is a storm that has been producing winds in excess of 60 miles an hour, locally even as high as 80 miles an hour. So you can see how that wind is really whipping up there in Macomb as that storm now gets ready to rake its way across parts of Hancock and farther south as we go. Yeah, I know. We kind of had a feeling it was going to buffer there for a minute just because of all that wind and rain that is now taking place. But there's Macomb right there. And, of course, the activity slowly pulling in. This is the rainfall rate that we're seeing here. Impressive that we're seeing as far as the amount of rainfall coming down from the storms. Of course, the rate's getting close to 2 inches per hour, close to 3 inches in some local areas. And once again, that could cause some serious street flooding, okay? Poor drainage areas likely may be encountering some of that as we make our way the next hour or so. So do be advised, we could be talking about some flash flood warnings maybe in these areas also going in the next hour or so. It's great to have all that rain, but not in a very short period of time. That is always a big concern when you're dealing with these gully washer thunderstorms that are taking place across the area, Andrew.
Yeah, this is a welcome sight. Not the severe weather, but the fact that we're getting widespread moderate to heavy rainfall at times. This is certainly very nice to see. We just don't want it to come with all these tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings. So our greatest area of concern, to reiterate where James was talking about here, continues to be that pair of tornado warnings, and that stretches from La Harpe right through Macomb. In fact, the National Weather Service in their last warning was saying that the tornado was actually near Macomb. And you can see that if you use the velocity scan. We've got two areas of rotation. You've got one area, I mean, that just so easy to pick out here on the radar. There's the one area of rotation for the top warning, and then here's your other area of rotation right here for the bottom warning near Macomb. So both of those in conjunction, kind of moving off to the north and east. It'd be fascinating to see if after a while maybe they merge together, because they're not that far apart, to be honest.
No, not at all. In fact, you know, Charlie, who's our producer in the booth right now, Charlie, if that PC1 ever comes up, just go right to it. And you can see, I think the one, especially just south and east of Strongers, is really showing some pretty decent rotation that you see here. I'll kind of move back in the picture here. Really decent, coming right around like so. You can see just south of Raritan, east of 1700 East. And that is really a big concern as that continues to make its way off to the east. Now, there's Roseville right here, okay? There's 67. So if you're watching us from Roseville, hopefully you are in your basement right now. We're talking about a very dangerous situation. I mean, this is what we're noticing on the radar itself from this. So you got just over 10 minutes or so, given the speed of the system, moving at around good 50, 60 miles an hour. Abingdon, okay, home of the tornadoes, okay, you got 34 minutes to get to your safe place, okay, because given the path that we see here, it's going to be impacting you, just about a half an hour or so. So don't try and find out where that storm is. Don't try and chase it. We got the veterans out there that are taking place, but you can see the inflow right here, okay, going into it, and then the green and red showing the backside. So no doubt we are seeing some pretty decent circulation going on with that storm as that continues to make its way off to the northeast. And there's that tornado warning that Andrew just mentioned that's going on for at least another 20 more minutes or so. So given the path, I think this is going to be eventually tracking its way into southern Knox County or so. Let's go ahead and actually put up that reflectivity again if we can, Andrew. And once again, let's push our way into around southern Knox County if we can here. And then put the velocity mode on. And then we'll give everyone a good idea what we're talking about here. We'll go to both areas. We'll go to one just south and west of Roseville, and then we'll go to the one over in Macomb. But there's the circulation right here. Andrew's going to try and put a track on this going into portions of Abington, McQuon, even around London Mills. I would say that's about right. Garrelsburg, I would say, if it does, it's trying to kind of nudge, don't you think, Andrew, just a little bit more north than more east.
Yeah, it looks like it's trying to take that more northward jog as it's just getting so wrapped up in the cyclone that's present there clearly that, yeah, I think it could still take that little bit of a northward jog, which eventually, like you see in the listing there, would impact Galesburg. And we do have the beast in Galesburg right now. Right. So we'll be taking a look at that here shortly, too.
Let me just real quick. Charlie, PC1, can we get... Okay. PC1 is done, and we're talking about out in Macomb. We had the camera out there, gone likely because of all the winds that are taking place. New warning that's popping up as well. Let's go real quick to Macomb, and then we'll go out and we'll update all the warnings that are continuing to, that's why we're hearing the beeping, because we got new warnings that are now popping up. So I guess we're talking about circulation here. Doesn't look that too impressive. I think we're getting more of a downdraft now going into Macomb, and that's where the rain is really coming down. But you can see it's right on top of Macomb here. Tornado warning until 11:30 for parts of Macomb. That could very likely extend even farther eastward. Have that circulation right here that we see here. That could extend more into Bushnell, possibly even going a little farther north and east from that storm, moving about at least 60 miles an hour or so. So definitely around Bushnell, you got less than 15 minutes to get to your location. If we can, Andrew, let's go and widen the picture out, because that the radio went on with that siren, and that meant that we have probably a new warning probably just north of here. Is that it? Yep, right here.
Right there.
Okay. And let's go ahead and put the reflectivity back on if we can. There we go. Quad City is located here. Not in the warning as of yet, but this is the new one that just popped up. We'll kind of get an adjustment here on this as far as the update. I think this is going to be a warning till about noon. Here we go. Cities included around Aledo, Andalusia, even around Muscatine, home to Muskies. Okay, we're talking about hail, fortunately under 1/4 of an inch, but we're talking about wind gusts maybe around 60 miles an hour, enough to do some damage. Usually when we see these boxes like showing a brighter yellow here, but not so yellow here, the brighter actually is indicating that there could be some circulation that may produce a tornado, okay? That's what we see right here on this one. Doesn't look all too impressive with that we see here on the reflectivity. Just briefly go to the velocity here to see, and we just don't really see much of that, which is good news right there, okay? So let's go to the one again here, going back to reflectivity with that new warning that is out. Okay, and you can see the line right here. Still some pretty decent lightning going on, some nice heavy rain, okay? But the concern here is that we could be talking about some damaging winds around 60 miles an hour, and maybe even locally even higher as well, and the possibility of maybe seeing some hail to go with it. So that's why they've got this warning out, because keep in mind, you're talking about not only the speed of the storm itself, you factor in that, but you actually factor in the winds coming down from the storm. Okay, it's like a little math problem right there. Kind of add those two together, and this is why they're saying that we can see winds maybe as high as 60 miles an hour, possibly even higher too, given the history of this particular storm as it makes its way off to the east. So from the Quad Cities here, let's actually go ahead and still that, if we can, Andrew, and take this part of the storm right here, because very likely that's part of the storm that's going to kind of drag its way across the immediate Quad Cities. And we're going to get a tracker on this. Okay, so we talked about, about a half an hour ago before. We're still looking at about a half an hour. A little bit surprised on that. It's really moving. So I would say about maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we'll see that make its way across the immediate Quad Cities. Going to get some rain, going to get some lightning, going to very likely in some areas get some brief power outages as well. Okay, we've had a history of that. And you're going to get some wind, which could produce some of that brief power outage as well. Okay, so that's what we're kind of watching with that storm. Other towns involved as well, around Geneseo, home of the Maple Leafs, we got talking about maybe about 50 minutes or so. Geneseo located right here. Geneseo, you'll definitely be impacted by this storm. Now, the question will be the level of severity as that storm continues to make its way off toward the north and east. Because we have plenty of energy available to help keep that going through the rest of our viewing area going in the next couple of hours or so. This is our storm energy, okay? The good amount of energy that we see here, the brighter the colors, the higher amount of energy, and that's certainly the case that we see, especially ahead of the storm and mainly along the I-80 corridor and points southward. That's why we pretty much have the severe thunderstorm watch out for these particular areas, okay? Next 3 hours, yeah, you can see that energy that was going to make its way off to the north and east as we make our way, excuse me, later on this afternoon. So that's why we think that about 2 o'clock or so is when things, I believe, are going to really calm down across the area. And that will very likely leave behind maybe a stray shower, maybe a stray thunderstorm going into the evening and overnight hours. Okay, and then we may have to recycle this all over again as we head into possibly tomorrow morning. Okay, the question will be certainly the level of severe weather. Of course, we'll be talking about that coming up this evening at 5, 6, 6:30, and 10. Let's go to Muscatine, actually. What PC is that? Okay, this is on Muscatine right here. Of course, there's the Mississippi River you can see right up there on the top of your screen. Looks all quiet for the time being, but you can tell that it's starting to look like night. Looks like an evening drive for people out there. So the storm is just knocking on your door. You're going to get some blinding rain out of this. You're going to get a good amount of lightning with this. You're going to get a good rush of wind, and potentially you are going to probably see some brief power outages as well with that part of the storm as it continues to make its way generally from the east northeast. So we'll be keeping an eye over in Muscatine. Hopefully we don't lose the buffer on this one as we make our way in the next half hour or 20 minutes for our friends out in Muscatine. Let's go ahead and make our way out to the radar itself again. And this is on the velocity mode. You can see how strong the winds that we're getting from this storm right here where we see the blue area. Okay, that's a good rush of wind coming down ahead of the storm itself. Nothing that we're seeing spinning, so that is some fairly good news. But given that motion that we see, here's the Quad Cities, and you can see it has a bullseye. Seeing those winds really begin to pick up. Okay, right now things are calm when it comes to the wind. Once again, velocity mode that we're dealing with here, but we're talking about this part of the storm eventually impacting us probably in a half an hour or less. It is starting to pick up a bit more steam. So that is something we're kind of waiting here to see the impact of what we could be potentially seeing in the immediate Quad Cities. If we could do this, and let's remind everyone once again, that warning that we have is until noon, and that does cover a good chunk of Mercer County, Aledo, Joy, Keithsburg. Keep that in mind. Reynolds, you're actually part of this storm, this warning as well. And of course, around our friends in Muscatine, Edgington, a part of that severe thunderstorm warning until around noon, where we're talking about not just the rain and lightning, but the main threat here, at least when it comes to this particular storm, we're talking about some wind, some good wind that could cause some brief power outages. So make sure, even if you're driving around, hopefully you're not going to be driving around here going the next hour or so. Have a good grip on that wheel because things are going to change pretty quickly here as we make our way in the next hour or so. Let's kind of widen this picture out even more, give everyone a good idea of what we're taking. And can we actually put a loop on this too? Look at the warnings all popping up in all these areas just south of the Quad Cities. And we kind of look for that part of the storm that's kind of bowing or bending out. And you can see the strongest part of the storm is actually located right here. Okay, you got a little bit of a vortex right here Vortex means kind of a little spin that we see here. Broadband here, okay? So certainly conducive as far as allowing this storm to be long-lasting, to streak across the rest of our viewing area. And then really the stronger part of this line is located to our south, and that's where we have these 2 tornado warnings going on. So let's kind of focus on those right there if we can, Andrew. And interrupt me, by the way, Andrew, if you get any information from our friends at the National Weather Service as well when it comes to any updates as far as local storm reports are concerned. This is reflectivity that we have here. Of course, not the rain, but let's go to velocity because we want to focus on where that possible spin may be taking place. 2 areas we're kind of watching here. And I think we're kind of noticing this too, Andrew. Like we got one right here, and then we have that one, Scioto.
There we go.
Scioto.
Yeah, Scioto, yeah.
Right there. Those are the 2 areas of really concern that we have here when it comes to the twisting that's going on here in our reflectivity mode. Very obvious with this one that we see here. I like that you put the loop on here. Very obvious with this one. We got to have some type of circulation, something on the ground here with that storm that is now just south and east of Roseville. Things hopefully are going to be quieting down there, but you can see that has a beeline for Abingdon. For Abingdon, you are in the path of that circulation, okay, of that signature that we see here as it makes its way off to the north and east. St. Augustine as well, and then that circulation continues like such. We're talking about Millbrook, we're talking about Mequon. Mequon, you're definitely going to be in the path of that storm as that makes its way off to the north and east. So watching us from Abingdon, Knoxville, Elmwood, we're talking about between 20 minutes to maybe about 50. For this storm to be impacting you in this particular track that we see right here. So that's one of them that we see here. The one in Scioto looks like it's becoming more of a straight line event. Would you say, Andrew?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think definitely the one that's just east of Roseville is the strongest of the 2. And just to update you on some of the reports that I'm seeing streaming in from when these storms were back further east earlier from Lee County, we're also seeing reports right from kind of the Fort Madison area. I was watching this. There are some reports of roofs blown off homes in that region. There's also a measured 100-mile-per-hour wind gust west of La Harpe in Hancock County that's just got confirmed as well.
And that was from that circulation. You can see where that circulation comes out of. Watch this. Comes right there. And that's making its way off to the northeast. So if this is the storm that had a history of producing maybe a 100-mile wind gust in La Harpe, my goodness, that's a big concern, folks, especially if you're in the path of this one. This is really the key because there's nothing that's blocking the flow going into this part of the circulation that we see here. So this is going to be a big concern. I mean, we're getting some pretty decent DBZs out of this here, which is the energy coming, the velocity energy, I guess you can say, that we're getting out of this just east of Roseville. So this is what we're talking about right here. I mean, look at the brightness that we see ahead of it. Okay, that's air going into the storm, and then behind it, yeah, we've got that air coming around it. So right here, there's got to be, I think, a tornado on the ground here. No question about it, okay? Some type of circulation, but no question, we're talking about some serious, damaging, intense winds that are going on with that. Doesn't really show much on our rotation mode here, but given what we're noticing on the velocity mode, we had a choice between what we're noticing on the rotation mode and velocity mode. The velocity mode is hands down the better graphic to actually look at in these situations. So no question, we're seeing a good circulation taking place here, continuing to make its way off to the northeast. Once again, Abingdon, St. Augustine, Mequon, you are definitely in that path. I think Galesburg, I think you're going to be fine, okay? Given the path that we're seeing here, you're going to be fine because Galesburg, if I put my hand here, it's probably right about there, okay? That's where Galesburg is. So I think Galesburg, you're going to be fine. I should be saying just off to the south and east for you, okay? So Bushnell, once again, you're definitely in the path of that possible tornado that actually may be on the ground. We're going to get another updated. There we go. That's even better. Abingdon, you got just over 10 minutes. 10 minutes before it impacts you. Mequon, you got less than a half an hour. Okay, less than a half an hour to get to your safe place, okay? Not a time to go out and look to see where it is, okay? Because it's a very fast-moving storm. We've already had a history of this storm producing winds of maybe 100 miles an hour around La Harpe. I'm going to repeat that again. Winds maybe around 100 miles an hour around La Harpe. Here's this Galesburg right now, and of course, all quiet. I can't tell. We're looking at it, looking to it. looking at to the south and west, okay? So fortunately, around Galesburg, of course, looking all quiet. That is some good news. I believe that is coming from our Beast, our storm-chasing vehicle, sponsored by good friends at Rock River Electric. So all is looking good right now over in Galesburg. You're going to be impacted by this system, okay? But as far as the threat for this tornado that we see possibly to your south, that's, I think, is going to stay to your south. Let's go back to the radar if we can, please. And once again, let's widen the picture out a little bit more. It's a pretty large storm, folks, so we're trying to make sure that we're covering all our bases, not just for our friends down south, but also as we make our way around the Quad Cities. And it's really focused in areas around the I-80 corridor, right around the immediate Quad Cities, and points southward for the potential of expanding the severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings, okay? So it's anywhere north of the Quad Cities, I think you're going to be fine. Okay, all looking quiet around here as we make our way through the midday hours. Okay, so I think you're going to be fine as far as not seeing any major threat of severe weather. Okay, I want to point that out. Will you get some rain? Well, you can see it's still trying to expand northward, so hopefully you get some of that rain instead of any type of severe weather. I think that severe weather, and Andrew and I have been kind of chatting about this. What time did you call me? About 6 o'clock this morning?
Yeah, early. That was
We've
early.
been kind of going back and forth here as far as this track and who's going to be really affected as we make our way through the late morning and midday hours. And we still believe it's going to be areas right near the Quad Cities and especially points southward for seeing some very active weather. You can really get a good idea here. That's great, Andrew. You can get a good idea. The strongest part of this storm is south of the Quad Cities, especially along Highway 34, but mainly southward. That is the strongest part of this line. And then the farther north as you go, we're basically talking about a very hefty thunderstorm that could have some very strong winds, enough to do some damage. And we're talking about that area as well. Out of Muscatine, and yeah, the rain is now really coming down. The winds that we see, just looking at some of the trees right there along the river's edge, doesn't look all too bad. So that is some good news there. I think the brunt of the storm has already just passed east of Muscatine. Okay, so now we're just kind of dealing with the rain event. We're talking about maybe there could be some small hail mixed in. And this is our probability of hail, kind of our hail tractor we like to call it here. And anytime you see the purple, okay, that just tells you, it's not just talking about how large the hail is. It's really not. It's talking about that there is hail that is actually falling and very likely reaching the ground. Okay, so that's why we have this as extreme probability that we see here, and you can see how that is just south and east of the Muscatine area. I wonder if we can actually, let's see here, can we actually put a loop on this this hail, and then we'll try and bring it out to the Quad Cities as well, if we can. And it kind of looks like it kind of looks that's part of the storm. Still wants to steer a bit more off to the north than east there, Andrew.
Yeah, still taking that kind of a northeast, John, at times it looks like. And so if that holds together, you know, you look at where the hail core is on this probability, you're talking kind of an impact there heading into just west of Andalusia and especially into Bluegrass.
Yeah, let's go and put a tracker on that if we can. And then after that, let's see what our algorithms are showing when it comes to the hail size. And we'll get this first, we'll get to the probability. So given the track that we see from comes to the hail here, and of course the Quad Cities here, Eldridge, we're talking about the possibility of seeing some hail, just hail alone. Okay, impacting Bluegrass and Walcott within 10 to 20 minutes or so. Maysville, maybe around 25 minutes or so. Of course, Maysville, of course, you've had some, you know, that potential tornado, the EF0 that developed just outside of your town. Well, in this case, I don't think we'll have to worry about any tornadoes for you, but possibly of maybe seeing some hail out of this as well. Here's the size that we see here. Good news here. And keep in mind, you know, we don't have actual eyes out there to really determine what the actual size of the hail is. But given our algorithm here to determine what that potential size is, you can see it's maybe about a half an inch. Okay, so we're possibly talking maybe dime size or maybe even penny size with that. But the good news is keep it that low of a size and it won't cause damage to your front hood of your car, okay, especially if you have it parked outside. Right now, if you're in western Rock Island County or even around eastern Muscatine going into western Scott County. So just be on on guard about that, okay? But this is packing some pretty good rain. This is also packing some pretty good wind. Once again, back to our reflectivity mode here. And anytime you see that real high distinction here, when this, with the green and the blue that you see here, that is definitely packing in some pretty good wind, okay? And I would say that this is really going to be for the leading edge of it that we see that full force of some of that wind, which could be clocking around 60 miles an hour or so. So that's why for the immediate Quad Cities, get ready for this. I mean, this is really moving pretty quickly. We're talking definitely less than a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes before it hits town. And as we take a look at our Eagle Eye on top of the call building in downtown Davenport, the camera is pointing off to the west. All is quiet, but it is getting a bit darker out to the west as well. Of course, we can't rule out that we still have some of that smoke that is still in the air as well. Rather on the unhealthy side, but hopefully with this wave of activity coming in, it's going to hopefully try to mix this air up pretty quickly and allow that air quality to slowly improve as well. Once again, out of Muscatine here, and if you look very carefully, cars are moving very slowly right there along River Drive there off of Muscatine. So it looks like some very heavy rain has fallen in the Muscatine area. Wind's not too bad, but I would say, you know what? I wonder if we can get how much rainfall that we've seen so far from this storm. I wouldn't be surprised if we've had about a good amount of rainfall that has taken place over in Muscatine. And you can see the precipitation rates are pretty high. So we might have had a quick, I would say, estimate here of maybe at least an inch that has fallen in a very short period of time. You can see the 3-hour rainfall here, given that we have around Muscatine and just south and west in Letts and Louisa County. Maybe a quick 1, even 2 inches of rain could be a good possibility, especially in areas more north of the Grandview area. Let's go back to our warnings, Andrew. And once again, if you're just joining us right now, here are the latest warnings that are taking place now just south and west of the Quad Cities. This one's until noon. Possibly seeing some small hail, but more importantly, a good rush of wind. There is some lightning involved with this system, so we could see some brief power outages. So that's your severe thunderstorm warning until noon. Most of the concentrated lightning right now where we saw that hail core just south and east of Muscatine and west of Edgington. This continues to kind of make its way more north than east. So it just may graze parts of the Quad Cities, parts of Rock Island and Davenport, I would say. Bettendorf, Moline, East Moline, I think you're going to be okay on that. When we're talking, because as far as maybe power outages are concerned, we're going to see any power outages, may be brief. I think it may be more on the western side of the immediate Quad Cities. So that's until noon. Aledo, you're involved in that, going to Andalusia. Excuse me, farther south as you go. Galesburg, you're under this severe thunderstorm warning. And I believe this is also until noon as well. We'll get that. This is always a challenge when it comes to trying to get these warnings because they're so close together. But as we make our way farther south of this line, the more severity the storm is, okay? So this one is until, we have 2 of them out here, I believe. So this one, oh, okay, very good. I see what we got here. Okay, so this one was until 11:45. Let's go back, get a little closer. I think we can pop up and get that graphic. That's really important there. Macomb, Monmouth, 11:45. Hail the size of quarters, okay? And look at the wind speed that we see here. 80 miles an hour. The threat, destructive, okay? And that's the same storm that produced maybe a 100-mile-an-hour wind gust right there in La Harpe. Okay, hopefully we're going to be getting some, maybe some pictures, some video out of there. But you can see that there was some thunderstorm wind gusts that were supported by a chaser, 80 mile an hour around La Harpe. But like I said, we're getting some indications of possibly winds even stronger than that. And then this thunderstorm wind gust around Bladensville, that's south and west of Scioto, had a report out there as well. So once again, let's go back to that warning that we have. Just pop up these warnings. And there we go. And we can keep these on here. You look at this, amazing with all the lightning that's going on here. That is really, really impressive. And then farther south and east, these warnings just flaring out eastward, advanced well off to the east, just west of, south and west of Peoria and Springfield. No surprise. We want to make sure that people are aware that the warning is not only in your town, but knowing that these storms are moving so quickly, giving advance warnings, getting them to the safe place. That's why these warnings are being extended even farther off to the east. Be curious to know, Andrew, if we're going to actually see this particular warning that we have right near the Quad Cities extend even more off to the east.
Just looking at the velocity data, it makes you think that that's going to be the case because we really haven't seen a downplay, if you will, of those really bright teal, light blue colors, and that's where your strongest wind speeds are. I'm just kind of poking around on one of our other radar maps here, and that's still estimating speeds in excess of 50 knots, which would put that close to 60 miles an hour. So I think that's still going to be a threat, and that it could eventually translate its way here into the immediate Quad Cities. We were thinking about 11:45 for the metro. That puts it about 10 minutes away, and if you look at the radar here right now, I think that's a pretty safe bet that we're going to see at least some type of wind in here. Now, I haven't seen any reports out of Muscatine other than, say, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts there, but certainly the velocity signature here indicates that there's a lot of wind just above the ground, and if you can get the storms to latch onto the energy to pull that wind to the surface, we could be talking about eventually some stronger wind gusts here. But so far, they haven't extended the warning, but I would not be surprised if that got extended at all, just based on what we're seeing. And kind of too, if you look at this loop, you could begin to see how there's like a comma head signature that's working its way up through Conesville and Muscatine. That's where there's a mini area of low pressure that's developing. And oftentimes on the front edge of those, you can get these stronger wind gusts as it becomes more organized and heads off to the east. So I think that's going to become a factor too. And you can certainly see that on the reflectivity. And also notice too, the greatest concentration of lightning. So that's where the strongest part of the storm is. And based on its movement, if we put this into motion here for the last 30 minutes, yeah, it's heading right for us here. In fact, it looks like if you look at the lightning data, the strongest part of this storm will be right along the Mississippi River on both sides of the Quad Cities here, and then eventually it will make its way just to the north of Kelowna. So we're talking about the metro, we're talking eventually Pleasant Valley, and then this getting into extreme northwest Henry County, Kelowna. We were talking Geneseo earlier, so we can put a little bit of a track on there just based on where the most intense part of the storm is and just take it off kind of to the northeast here. This is the only part of this whole storm system that's moving in this direction, that's got this northward tint to it because of that comma, that little rotation piece in there. So there you see Quad Cities. I still think it's going to be sooner than that. I'm saying 11:45 just based on its speed and its movement. But yeah, eventually Clinton too. Getting into parts of southwest Whiteside County, be prepared for some strong wind gusts with this. We've been watching the hail potential too. It wasn't really that all exciting earlier. It's still a little elevated here to the southwest of Andalusia near Edgington. But even then, we looked at the hail size. Wasn't too impressive. Perhaps some larger hailstones just west of town here, west of Edgington, but not a whole lot of coverage on that. So likely some small hail, definitely some gusty winds. Thankfully, the hail isn't any bigger than it is, other we'd be talking about some much bigger problems. But that's an impressive part of the storm for sure.
Yeah, no question about
that. Moving there.
I was wondering if our friends in the booth could actually switch to the Bridgepoint camera, and if we can actually move that camera more to the west if we can, and then eventually, and give us a cue in our ears that you guys have that. I mean, I think, okay, we are, let's see here. Okay, so we're kind of looking, and it's such a challenge too, Andrew, because, you know, we still have some of that smoke in the air, because if we didn't so much have that, I think we would actually be able to give us a much better picture of the cloud deck, but it is. Thank you very much there. Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. You can see how dark it is getting off to the west of us. It is not too far away for us seeing some of that good rush of wind, some of that blinding rain, and of course some of that vivid lightning that's going to be taking place as well. I hope my wife is listening. Hopefully she gave the dogs composure and in their nice safe place as well. I know when Andrew and I always talk about our pets, and there's always concern how our pets kind of get treated during these severe weather events. So hopefully you are in those situations where you're close to your animals as well. Give them a good hug, because they do not like these situations when you're talking about a whole lot of thunder and lightning when it comes to these particular storms, Andrew.
Oh yeah, I know from firsthand experience. Cooper right under the bed or any kind of substantial shelter he can find inside the house. So I imagine that's probably what I'll be going home to here a little bit later. Some good lightning going to be heading his way here, no doubt. But yeah, that smoke is just, it's been something that's been so hard to remove. At least the air quality is improving.
Yeah.
We're finally out of the unhealthy range for all. Now it's unhealthy for some sensitive groups. But give it a few more hours, especially after these storms move through, and I think we're going to see a big increase in air quality.
Let's go right to the radar if we can, please. Yeah, and we're going to get that radar up here in just a second again, and let everyone know what's transpiring here across the area with this cluster of thunderstorms that developed in parts of eastern Nebraska and going into northwestern Illinois. There we go. Let's wind the picture out a little bit if we can and show the extent of this. You can see kind of hugging right along the I-80 corridor and then dropping southward just west of Interstate 74, stretching his way just west of the Peoria area. Strongest of the storms now located to our south. The big change that we've noticed here, Andrew, you can tell the tornado warnings have been taken off. So that is some good news. However, though, we are still seeing some type of rotation, now broad rotation, now entering the Abington area just around southwestern Knox County, just in southern Knox County. And you can see where that rotation is actually now just east of Abington, right around Mequon. Some broad rotation taking place there. So right now we haven't had any other reports when it comes to that particular storm. I'm kind of looking at the chat here and not seeing anything of concern. So that is actually some fairly good news there.
Yeah, it's a lot of I think straight line wind damage. I mean, there's everything from a full-size barn that was flattened to the ground. There's also full-size hardy pine trees that have been snapped off at their base from areas just to the west of this region where this storm was possibly producing winds as high as 100 miles per hour in Hancock County earlier. Still working to confirm that, but that just goes to show the power of this system as it's moving through. So a little broad rotation there yet. Nothing that has prompted a tornado warning or anything like that. But reminder, there is a severe thunderstorm warning that is in place for that exact area, and actually they've extended it now to include Galesburg proper. And we do have the beast in Galesburg, so I imagine that that scene is probably going to be going downhill in the next few minutes. If we put the reflectivity back on, you can see some of that heavier rain, including a very high concentration of lightning. Abingdon points south, but even a little uptick in intensity just to the west of town of Galesburg, say north of Monmouth there. We're starting to see some little intensification. So if you put the loop on this, you can see where are we heading. Well, in this part of the storm, it's mostly east, not much of a northward turn unless you're in Abingdon or Mequon where that rotation is. But certainly some heavy rain, some gusty winds located there. So we'll keep an eye on the rotation part. Again, it's right there near Mequon. It's kind of loosely organized. It's very broad. It's not very tight right now.
Right. Big difference compared to about, what, 20 minutes ago when it was really tight, just around Avon or so. You can see it just, on the loop there, it was like just around the Roseville area. It was a very tight rotation. And now it's kind of losing some of that in the upper reaches. Right there, it was really impressive. So if I jump on in here, this is what Andrew was talking about right here. So this is a circulation that we had just about, what was that, like about a half an hour ago or so, right around Roseville. And so as we kind of click this even more, you can see how that rotation kind of falls apart. So that is some really, really good news. And I can't, stress enough how, on my Facebook page, so many people from Monmouth and Roseville just begging for some much needed rainfall. They've only seen, in some cases, under a tenth or enough to wet the pavement. This is a very nice sight to see for these areas, seeing that here's the latest 3-hour rainfall. Of course, it hasn't gotten to these areas yet. But you can see where we got the green or the darker shades of green approaching an inch. That is some welcome news, and not just for residents, but also farmers as well, because they're at a point right now, they're deciding on what they're going to do about their soybean field, even when it comes to their corn as well. So that is some very good news. You can see around the immediate Quad Cities, no warning has popped up yet for the immediate Quad Cities. That's some good news. Hopefully it stays that way. But we can see the cluster of activity going on with the lightning. That's anytime you see a concentration of lightning strikes, that's the strongest part of the storm, obviously, okay? And we're always concerned, too, that within that, you're either talking about some wind or you're talking about some hail, okay? And right now, the big emphasis has been the hail. that we're seeing here. Right now, we could be talking about some of that falling around, just around Edgington, south of Andalusia. That continues to make its way off to the east. Of course, here's the Quad Cities here. Street level mapping, that's what we can do here. And you can see just north of Abington, this is where we actually are seeing some hail. It could be close to 1/4 of an inch, but I would say we're talking more about dime or penny size with this line of activity that we see right here. There's the orange, or at least a brighter orange that we see here. So about 1/2 an inch size. So you may be talking about maybe dime size or penny size from that we see here. So fortunately, not the kind of size that will produce damage, but it is certainly of concern because of the intensity of that part of the storm. Because we're talking about some of that lightning going on. We're talking about some of that wind, and as you can see, it. Not too far away now from the site itself, right now on the immediate Quad Cities, just maybe outside our station here. And it almost seems here too, Andrew, that the strongest part of the winds are going to try and almost veer its way around the Quad Cities and eventually more north.
Yeah, we've got this corridor it's already pushed through Muscatine, but we're in Andalusia right now where you're seeing, again, this brighter teal push. And it's no surprise we're seeing it in that shape either. We've got this little mini low that's forming at the top of this strong storm complex. So as this moves into the metro, that's where we're going to be keeping a close eye on all the observation sites that this is going to be impacting. Again, there's no warning for the immediate Quad Cities. It's just to our south, but certainly there is a good amount of wind that's going to be rushing in as that line pushes through. There's kind of a little better view of where the brighter greens are, where you're going to see that. Just now getting out of the warning box, but the wind likely picking up in bluegrass right now.
Yeah, this is velocity mode, folks. This is velocity mode showing the winds, which is, I can hear rumbles of thunder now outside, actually. And I think that wind's going to be really picking up here and certainly in just a little bit. Strongest of the winds, even from this reflectivity mode here, it's probably right there. And you see it's got a bullseye for the immediate Quad Cities. So we're definitely talking about around 5 minutes or so before it actually impacts the area. And I think it's even faster than that. I think we can agree with that. I mean, it says 11 minutes. I think it's moving, it's picking up steam a little bit. So if you're watching us in Pleasant Valley, you're talking about maybe about 10 minutes from now, maybe about 25 minutes. And you know what? Those guys in the booth, they can read minds. They can read minds. And because let's take a look. This is from the Eagle Eye on top of the Call building looking off to the west. You can see Modern Woodman Park. You can see just off to your left. And wow, look at those darkening skies that we see. That's not smoke, folks. Now we're talking about the storm itself. And the visibility really begins to drop after that. I wouldn't be surprised if they threw a warning out for the immediate Quad Cities.
You guessed it.
Oh, my goodness.
We called it. Yep.
Okay. Well, it was bound to happen, given what we are seeing on the radar, the reflectivity and velocity mode. But yeah, things are getting awfully dark. We're starting to see some lightning out in the distance as well. We're going to eventually get some of this blinding rain that's taking place. Hopefully, you got those flashlights just ready to go. We may be talking about some brief power outages here. I'm going to ask David, actually, can you just briefly see from Mid-American what's going on out to the west? When you get a chance, just wave us down.
There's currently 400 power outages on Mid-American.
On a Mid-American. Any particular location?
Council Bluffs, Des Moines area. Council Bluffs and Des Moines area.
Yeah.
Council and Des Moines. Okay, so that's well off to the west. Okay, got some good news. Okay, so we'll see. We'll be getting an update on that. But you can see the skies are definitely darkening just west of the Centennial Bridge itself. So things are going to get kind of crazy here in just a little bumpy as far as the wind is concerned. Some of that very heavy rain, maybe some of that hail as well as that storm moves on by. But also, so we're going to get some pretty good rain out of this as well. And of course, what does that mean as we go through we even go to the radar and just have the radar up itself. What does that mean as far as the rest of the day is concerned? But let's do this first. Let's show you the update on this warning. And not only does it cover the immediate Quad Cities, but you can see even parts of Henry County as well in Illinois. So in Geneseo, Orion, going to parts of Cambridge. You're also going to be part of the severe thunderstorm warning until around 12:30. So we're talking about a good 40 minutes or so with that line as it makes its way off to the east. The variables that come with this, once again, hail really not a concern given the size that we're looking at. We're concerned about the 60-mile-an-hour winds. Okay, that is just enough to produce some damage. Okay, and that's why we have this warning out, given what we've been noticing in the past half hour, 40 minutes from this storm. with the amount of wind that's coming from it, the amount of lightning that we see, and of course some of that heavy rain. Looks like the heaviest of the rain is really going to be focused around the immediate Quad Cities and kind of steering its way more in this general area right here. And that's really good. The rainfall rates here really coming down in Montpelier, Edgington, even around Andalusia itself. So you know what? How about this? Let's put a tracker on this one too, Andrew. All right, and then we'll kind of bend this way a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So as far as seeing some very heavy rain out of this, you're talking about not just the Quad Cities, Parkview, but also around Hisdale as well. Okay, some very heavy rain could cause some minor street flooding in some areas, so be on the lookout for that. We could get a quick inch of rain from this rate that we see here. Come on, keep in mind these are projections that we're seeing, but what we're noticing here on the rainfall rates, that is really on the high side, given our legend that we see here. So we're going to get some pretty good rainfall out of this, maybe around an inch, potentially, maybe in some local areas, even around 2 inches of rain. Charlie, what do you got? Yeah, what do you got here, Charlie? I-280 bridge, and you can see that the rain is really coming down. We're starting to see that wind pick up a little bit as well. And it looks like given the rate of that rain, given the traffic that we see, we're also noticing that begin to slow down a little bit as well. I think people are kind of making sure that they can see the visibility in front of them. I mean, right now, visibility from this camera alone looks okay, but given the rate of the rain, that can certainly cause some challenges as far as driving, especially in the outlying areas of the Quad Cities.
Yeah, they've got some heavy. I've got you zoomed in right to the bridge here on reflectivity, and yeah, definitely some very heavy rain falling there.
Yeah, look at that. My goodness, there's the 280, Interstate 280 right there. There's Jumers, as we see right there. And look at that rain. It is coming down over at Jumers right now off of Interstate 280. So no question, that's slowly edging its way off to the northeast, western side of Rock Island. Here's downtown Rock Island right here, okay? Hopefully you're not taking that nice little walk around Shreveport Park. I think it might be a good idea to get into a dry building right now, because that rain is right now knocking on the door over in downtown Rock Island around Shreveport. And of course that rain, and we actually scroll down a little bit more, let's drag this down a little bit more, and going into downtown Davenport as well.
Whoop, there we go.
There we go.
Wrong side.
That's okay. That's okay. And we can actually zoom in even more if we can. Just show you the street level mapping that we see here. Getting our way into River Drive. There's Rockingham Road there. Here's downtown Davenport right here. Of course, here's the Centennial Bridge that we see right here. So that rain now getting ready to make its way into downtown Davenport. Look how dark it is. We've actually had to move the camera a little bit more off to the west, because that rain is actually going to produce some blindness, and that's not something that we want to show. But you can see it looks like nighttime over there. Wow. And there's Bridgepoint camera pointed that way. You know what? Yeah, the Eagle Eye there in downtown Davenport, really good, very distinctive as far as the darkness of the skies. If we can actually pan out, zoom out on the Bridgepoint camera, if we can. And as we try to do that, okay, and I tell you, Andrew, we can hear that rain outside. My goodness.
It's here in Moline.
It's coming down.
It's here.
My goodness. And we're slowly taking that camera out. Visibility right now, not too bad. Okay. And we got, of course, trying to challenge ourselves with the iris here because of that storm coming on through. You can almost say they're actually seeing some lights now popping up. Street lights now starting to pop up because of this storm now approaching the immediate Quad Cities itself, Andrew.
Yeah, that darkness really taking over. Get ready for the visibility to drop too as this rain moves in. That's going to knock visibility to well under a mile. And you can see this is a solid wall of not only strong winds, but also heavy rain. I mean, it is pouring in downtown Rock Island right now. Same for Davenport, and just moments away now from getting to the I-74 bridge here near Bettendorf and Moline, just moments away. Now, don't forget, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning that continues until 12:30. We've got just a little bit more than 30 minutes left on that. The biggest concentration of the lightning, where the strongest part of the storm is, continuing to hang out right around Andalusia, Bluegrass. That's where we're seeing some of the most intense lightning, also likely where we're seeing some small hail that is falling from this storm. And yeah, we can verify that. There you see the higher extreme colors there, the purple purple south and east of Andalusia near Konya Center, excuse me. Milan also just to the west of there. And then the airport too, likely going to start to see some bigger raindrops and potentially some smaller size hail. If we go to the hail size, likely still not going to be impressive yet. We're talking half an inch or less. So that's not severe hail, not going to be doing any damage. But if you still look at the velocity tracker, you can see that we're still going with these really light shades of teal and these really light shades of blue. So that's indicating that those strong winds are still pushing through. If we put the loop on this, you'll be able to see that this is quickly moving to the north and to the east. Okay. So we've got that warning here. Wouldn't be surprised if once it gets to the eastern edge of this warning, we're going to be talking about parts of Whiteside County, including Morrison, Prophetstown, and eventually Sterling Rock Falls as well. You got some power outage updates for us, David.
They don't have quite as many, but if we're looking over at Ameren now, we're seeing in the Keokuk area, you're seeing over 1,000 people without power. Macomb, you're seeing 2,500 people without power. Abingdon area, you're seeing almost 500 people. So it's as the storm is moving, these numbers are actually jumping up, of course, quite a bit. Still not seeing a ton with Mid-American right now. Only one outage reported in the Illinois side of the Quad Cities right now, none on the Iowa side, but definitely seeing that number jumping with Ameren customers.
Yeah, no surprise with that wind whipping through. That was a view of the beast moments ago in Galesburg. That's where we've got that station.
Yeah, let's go back to Galesburg. Where? Beast, right?
Yeah, we're going to head back to, there we go. We're going to head back to the Beast in Galesburg, a live looks. Now, the Beast is stationed right off of Interstate 74. It's right there near Martin, the John Deere store, right off of I-74. We've got it stationed there just in case our crew needed to take substantial shelter. We're all about keeping our crew safe, and we want to play things smart. That's what we do when we're tracking these storms. So that's where it's sitting. You can see traffic is definitely slowed down on I-74. The visibility looks like it's terrible as that rain just continues to come down in sheets. I've actually got the radar sitting right over where the Beast is right now. And yeah, it's just a solid sheet of red, a lot of lightning, some gusty winds, but definitely causing some slowdowns on I-74 where we're continuing to see that real heavy part of the storm. Some good wind gusts.
We're feeling the wind gusts now coming from this storm as it continues to make its way across the immediate Quad Cities. Once again, you're seeing a picture from our storm chasing vehicle, the Beast. Is actually located just outside of Galesburg there and just getting pounded with some of the rain that we see. Of course, we're getting pounded as well in the immediate Quad Cities as we actually briefly go back to the radar itself, show you the extent of this rain, show you the extent of the wind, show you the extent of the lightning that's going on with this system as well. If we can go to the reflectivity mode, and show you the latest that we see here. And once again, this is out of the Galesburg area. Once again, little street level mapping that we see here. Heaviest of that rain right on top of the town itself. Of course, there's Knox Highway 10. You can see there's Knoxville. But right now we're kind of dealing with a very heavy rain event with some pretty good lightning located just now west of Highway 150 that we see right there on 170th Street to 290th Avenue right there, just east of Alexis. Of course, things are now quieting down around Alexis. That's some good news. But we continue to watch this storm make its way off to the east. The concentration, I want to pay this attention, folks. The concentration of this lightning is also a sign of maybe not only some hail, but maybe some strong winds are coming down from the storm itself. Okay, that's why we have this warning that is still in place, especially for parts of Knox County going into about noon or so. So you can see how it's kind of beginning to kind of whip its way right across western parts of Knox County. So Rova country, here's Rova country right here. Okay, be on guard. You're going to get some very heavy rain, some very strong winds here in a little bit as that system continues to make its way off toward the east. And once again, this is our velocity mode indicating the strong winds. Reflectivity mode will show the heavy rain that's coming down from here, as well as the lightning that is associated with this system, especially just north and west of the Galesburg area. So be on guard around Oneida, Victoria, and even if we make our way out of the Knox County area, we're talking about Galva as well. Question is, will they extend this warning out even more? That's something we'll be keeping an eye on. Taking a look at that warning, of course, this is until 12:30. That covers the immediate Quad Cities and points north and east, heading into parts of Henry County, Illinois. This is until 12:30. The heaviest of the rain taking place. It's a good amount of lightning you can see even just west of the Quadcy International Airport. And within this concentration of lightning that we see here, excuse me, not only are we getting some of that wind that we just felt outside our station here in Moline, but also some of that hail as well. Now, fortunately, the hail, the probability of the hail is begin to drop as well, okay? So you get the blues that you see here, okay, we're in that kind of a moderate range, but the size of the hail is not as, of course, not damaging, and we're noticing that. We had some brief yellows in there a little bit, but now we're at a point right now where we're kind of dealing with an orange or the dime size or close to penny size hail that is taking place just south of the river itself. You can see just west of the Quad City International Airport. So this is what we call a hail tracker when it comes to the potential size of the hail itself. But severe thunderstorm warning, nonetheless, warning comes out by our friends at the National Weather Service. They're the ones that post these warnings to give us an idea as far as the severity. And you can see how the way it is tracking, it's really focused in this particular area right here, okay, that we're really paying attention to as it makes its way off to the north and east. So you're watching us in Pleasant Valley, Eldridge, Cordova, you're definitely going to be seeing some of this blinding rain, good rush of wind, some vivid lightning, could briefly cause some power outages as that makes its way off to the north and east. The question is, will they kind of put a new warning out here? Not too sure right now. This is 11th Avenue over in Moline. Okay, sure. And you can see that people are taking it nice and slow. And you can see how the roadways are really getting ponded out there. And that's very likely maybe some of that rain that we were projecting with the algorithm that we have showing maybe about a good quick inch of rain that might have fallen around the area. Not etched in stone, it's just an estimate that we see from our models that are indicating some of that rain. Bridgepoint camera, it needed a wash.
It's a little windy.
Yes, a little windy, and it needed a good wash with all the smoke that has been in the air. So we can actually, I think we can even put the wipers on too, which is really not going to make any difference. But you can see that the visibility has really begun to drop across the I-74 bridge area. That's actually looking off to the west. Asking you shall receive. Yes, here come the wipers.
There it is.
We can actually do a little wiper action on this as well. You know, if we can actually do this, guys, no rush. If you can actually point that camera facing more east, that would be great. Yeah, so we can kind of, maybe that might improve the visibility a little bit, and actually at the same time show the what's actually taking place on the I-74 bridge. Likely, we are seeing slow go of traffic. We're likely seeing some pretty good ponding that is going on as well with that particular storm. So, Andrew, put the tracker up. All right, and you can see what the strongest part of the storm that we see here. There's no warning out for this area, but we're anticipating one from our friends at the National Weather Service. But we're talking about around LeClaire in just under 10 minutes, Comanche in just over 20 minutes, and about a half an hour or so around the Clinton area. We're going to be seeing some of that activity. And of course, Clinton located way up there, okay? So we're talking about over a half an hour away for possibly seeing that part of the storm make its way off to the northeast. But as far as really the level of severity, things are starting to calm down quite nicely, and that's some good news. Oh, now we've got, I can see, I'm just looking at one of the monitors and getting the Bridgepoint camera up. Oh my goodness, we had a good stroke of lightning that, actually I thought it just hit the I-74 bridge, honestly. The arch of the bridge. I thought I saw that. It was kind of interesting. But you can see the traffic moving very, very slowly. And look at that visibility, Andrew. Wow, it has really, really dropped.
Yeah, that's cutting down pretty good. And I think we saw, I don't know if it was water coming off the bridge or whitecaps on the Mississippi River on that previous shot we had a moment ago. Yeah. But indication, again, the wind is picking up. But you're right, the visibility is definitely dropping really quickly.
And it looks like some of the cars are actually almost doing a little surfing there, too. You can see if you look very carefully there, yeah, that rain has really come down in a big way. So be on guard about the ponding, too. That's going to be taking place. All this rain coming down a short period of time definitely can make it a challenge for some drainage areas in and around town. So definitely be on the lookout for that. We make our way south of the Quad Cities. The good news is now they've canceled that warning in places around Knox County. So that is some fairly good news. Warnings continue out to our south. Really, the only lonely warning that we see right now is located around the immediate Quad Cities until about 12:30 or so. So if we don't see an extension of this warning, then we're going to be going back to regular programming. And of course, coming up on our 5, 6, 6:30, and 10 o'clock show, excuse me, we'll definitely be updating you on the aftermath of this area of activity. And keep in mind, this is one of several rounds of showers and thunderstorms that we expect to see actually in the coming days. What has made this forecast so challenging is because we haven't been dealing with any cold fronts coming on through. Okay, that makes the timing very easy for us. It makes even the coverage even better still. But we're talking about these weather disturbances that are actually riding along this hot bubble of air that is anchored just off to our south and west. We're on the periphery of this hot bubble of air. So these weather disturbances have been trying to race along this hot bubble of air. The challenge, and we've been talking about this for the past couple of days, I believe Andrew has as well, is the fact that the challenge has been where these storms evolve. Okay, and where they evolve, this gives us a better idea as far as the tracking and then the coverage itself. But no doubt, it's a very big challenge when you're dealing with the scenario that we're dealing with right here. And it makes it very hard for the models to kind of update themselves as well. So like last night, we were kind of hinting that we were going to be seeing some activity try to roll through here, at least for the first half of the day. Wasn't so much early in the morning. It was extremely isolated, but it was that second wave that we were noticing that was going to be coming in sometime around the late morning and midday hours. It was just more what part of our viewing area was going to be seeing the extent of that. And some of the models were kind of hinting it would be kind of generally in this area, but not as widespread that we see right here, okay? So keep that in mind. Anytime we show you computer forecast models, that's never etched in stone, okay? This just is a good idea of what can potentially take place. So the model going into this wave actually is doing a pretty good job. But like I said, we're not quite out of the woods yet because we're going to continue to see the same scenario heading into tomorrow morning. We're possibly going to be going to the later day hours on Saturday and possibly going into about Sunday. The question will be the level of severity, okay? So we'll have to keep an eye on the skies going into about Friday morning. Eventually we'll find out, get the latest from the Storm Prediction Center, which we call the SPC, to determine what type of level of convection we could be seeing. Are we going to be seeing a slight risk, a moderate, high, you name it. So we'll definitely be talking about that coming up at 5, 6, and 6:30. That kind of agree with that, Andrew, as far as when it comes to the challenge of these particular cells that we're dealing with?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about it on the YouTube Live this morning. That it's these small features that the models just don't get a good grip or a good hand on that really leads to us having to do this forecast literally hour by hour. If you were watching me on Good Morning Quad Cities, we were literally changing some of the arrival timing as these storms were getting ready to move through and evolving to our west. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you have to really stick with us throughout the morning because we're going to continue to dive into the latest modeling and our gut feeling, of course, to tell you exactly when these storms are going to start moving in. So we're continuing to see some very, very heavy rainfall here in the immediate Quad Cities with this line that's moving through. Good deal of lightning, too. So I want to poke around in here just a little bit more so you can see what we're talking about in terms of the wind, which it looks like as of right now. We can put our velocity scan into a couple different modes, but right now it looks like the strongest winds are currently pushing east of Davenport. So now talking about the wind gust front, if you will, that initial push of strong winds from Pleasant Valley down towards East Moline, Kelowna, that's eventually going to get into Geneseo. In fact, if you get a little closer or a little further south where there is no warning, it still looks like you got some strong winds here to the west of Galvez. So we'll keep an eye on that, see if that gets extended to a warning. But so far right now, biggest area of concern, I would say, is Eldridge down through Pleasant Valley, down through Kelowna, and a line through Orion and also Cambridge. Take that line, shove it east. That's what we're looking at in terms of the wind threat. And actually, I'm going to do that for you virtually here.
You go for it.
Let's go ahead and peel that off. We'll put the tracker on the wind here. Actually, it's a fairly solid line of wind that's coming through. So that's going to be moving off to the east. It's got some northeast tint to it too, so we'll throw that on there. And there you see it. So Cooper, if you're watching TV, I know I leave it on for you, so you got something to keep you occupied. You've got 7 minutes to get to the basement. I know that's where I'm going to find him too when I get home.
Cooper's one talented dog, people. He does. He's very talented.
I've taught him well. 26 minutes to Fulton and just a little bit more than 20 minutes to Clinton. And we do have a camera in Clinton along the riverfront, so we're going to keep an eye on that too as that storm gets a little bit closer to Clinton if we're still with you here. Okay, so we're going to, actually we just kind of trimmed that warning up a little bit more. So let me peel off the radar because it makes it just a little bit easier to see who's got the warning and who doesn't. So we've peeled away that warning out of the immediate metro. It looks like it's just hanging on to East Moline, which we just showed you the wind threat is passing now through into the east of there. So now we're focusing on the Illinois Quad Cities, Mississippi River points east. So Silvis, right along Interstate 80, as you take that into Geneseo, and eventually this could get into Atkinson too. But that's the only warning we've got going on right now. We've seen a nice cleanup of warnings to the south of us, other than extreme southeast Knox County, where you're talking about McQuan and also Elmwood. You've got Farmington there. That's about it. There's kind of a sizable gap, it looks like, in the intensity, though. This area northeast of Galesburg is kind of suspicious, especially when you look at the velocity, because it looks like you have some of those brighter colors. So may want to keep an eye on this. You know we will. So if you live in, say, Stark County, Toulon, Bishop Hill, eventually Kewanee, that's something to keep an eye on. So there's a live shot from our Beast, again, unleashed by our friends at Rock River Electric. We've got the Beast down in Galesburg, right off of Interstate 74. If you're familiar with where the Martin John Deere store is, that's exactly where the Beast is sitting right now. We wanted to give you a good shot of the travel impacts, and of course, it's a nice wide open space so we can get a full view. And looks like it finally got a natural car wash, a good amount of water out there, and we were seeing traffic slow down too, but thankfully it doesn't appear it got too much wind where it's sitting right now in near downtown Galesburg.
Yeah, and as we go to the other eagle eye shots that we have around the area, this is our eagle eye on top of our station over in Moline. I believe looking toward the north, I would say. And you can see the visibility has improved nicely. Boy, it really came down at our station in a big way. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a good inch of rain. And then, of course, from the Bridgepoint camera, close up, you can see, you'll almost see that the cars kind of surfing a little bit. I mean, there was some very heavy rain, and you can tell that the cars are moving much slower, given the pavement on the roadways here. So you don't want to, certainly don't streak through any of this in a very fast motion, especially on Interstate 74. That is for sure. And of course, we want to remind people too, you know, you can go to Andrew's Facebook page, my Facebook page, or the WQED Facebook page, and let us know about rainfall amounts. Things are quieting down in your hometown. Be great to hear from you. Get those reports out there to the National Weather Service as well. But we would love to hear from you when it comes to the amount of rainfall that has taken place over in your hometown. Level of severe weather, once again, going to be focusing more south than east of here. We still have that one warning that is out, but you can see the big change that is now taking place. And you can see a much higher risk expected in downstate Illinois. And really no surprise, only because we're now getting ready to make our way into the peak heating of the day. A lot of very hot, humid, very unstable air kind of plowing its way across northern Missouri and now making its way into parts of downstate Illinois. And with some decent shear, they're going to be seeing some very extreme, maybe dangerous straight line winds that could be clocked like we saw in some of our hometowns, maybe upwards of 80, 90, potentially maybe around 100 miles an hour. At least that was one recorded over in La Harpe. Actually, I think we plan on even taking out the Beast and heading down to La Harpe and see about some of the damage. But we've had reports of that over in La Harpe. And of course, we'll get some more information on that and hopefully give you that in detail on our newscast at 5, 6, 6:30, and 10. But these are the local storm reports here. And kind of let's break this down, Andrew, as far as what each of these icons represent.
So when you're seeing the blue icon, the dark blue, that is a damaging wind gust report, or a wind speed report, if you will. And we've seen these everywhere from 80 miles an hour. Again, as James said earlier, we had one at 100. There's 90 miles an hour in Carthage. And these go all the way back to just near the Keokuk area, too, 74 miles per hour. Many reports of wind damage. And I know that David Bowman at the desk here, he's been monitoring those power outages for us. Do you have an update on that for us, David?
Yeah, so, I mean, just just before the last check at Abingdon was like 500 before. Now it's over 2,000. Macomb, 2,600. Keokuk area seeing over 1,000. Ameren customers in Illinois, there's 23,000 people without power.
Wow.
Looking at Mid-American right now, before there was only one reported power outage in the Quad Cities area. Now we're just under 400. So as
Is that more on the Iowa side or Illinois side?
On the Illinois side specifically, there's 0 on the Iowa side, but on the Illinois side, there's 398 to be specific. So as the storm moves, we're definitely seeing those power outage numbers jump.
That is impressive. That's a big jump from when we last checked in with you not that long ago. So again, the storms are still packing a punch. They're meaning business. Don't forget with these winds too, we're at that time of year where we're at full foliage of the trees. So the wind has an even greater impact this time of year because you have all those leaves that can grab onto that strong wind and really cause some damage. A lot of tree damage is what I've been seeing reports of just down south of us towards Keokuk and also Fort Madison. Several trees out of the ground, uprooted. We've got big adult pine trees snapped at their base. We had a barn that was flattened earlier too down in that direction. So the wind, especially on the southern flank of this storm, that's been the one that's meaning the most business. Still some strong wind that we're tracking just to the east of Oneida and Woodhull, where you're seeing those brighter yellows. Those are likely gusts that are of at least 50 miles an hour. They're not warned, though, because you need something much stronger than that to throw up a severe thunderstorm warning. But some strong winds certainly for Mequon still. There you see it really in that brighter yellow. That's why you're still under a severe thunderstorm warning for 14 more minutes, and then that will be let go as that strong wind gets out of here and heads off to the east. But immediate area of wind corridor, there you see it, just to the west of Cordova. It's in Kelowna right now. Let's peel this layer back off and I'll get you a new track as this thing continues to race off to the north and east, because if they do extend that warning, we're eventually going to be talking about places like potentially Clinton, Morrison, Prophetstown, Sterling, Rock Falls, Tampico, those areas in Whiteside County, and more of Henry County on the Illinois side too. So we'll have to see if they extend that. I mean, this is a good push of wind on the velocity data that we're showing here. So let's put the track on that. And yeah, there you see we're about 40 minutes or so from the Sauk Valley. Savannah, you've got about a half an hour. Fulton less than that, we're talking 20 minutes, 18 to Clinton, and then just a moment or two away from Geneseo with a good rush of wind. And this is all moving to the northeast, by the way, the only part of the storm that's really kind of been taken that direction, if you will.
I think really important too is, what does that mean for the rest of the day? I think people want to know, are we going to get some more strong storms? Now, there's something that we were kind of chatting about yesterday, Andrew, and that was, with the cap aloft. I mean, that was the big question, even when it came to this particular severe weather event. Do we break that cap? The cap is a warm layer aloft, okay? And if you break that cap, you allow for a lot of thermal convection to take place, allowing for a growing of these clouds. And it was very shallow, so we were questioning whether that was going to take place not just this morning, but more importantly, would we be able to not have a cap to work with to potentially building some more scattered showers and thunderstorms. But given the timing that we see here, I think this may lead to just, maybe a stray shower or thunderstorm come this evening, and I would say most of the night. However, though, we're still dealing with the same scenario as far as seeing these little ripples of energy out of the west, racing its way eastward, and combining that with any more instability from these older storms. You can't rule out some more shower thunderstorm chances heading into tomorrow. And right now, we're kind of looking at the first half of the day tomorrow morning. Very similar. The question is the level of severity. Is that something that we're going to have to be concerned about tomorrow? There is that possibility. I'm going to actually check out, just see if the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, what they have going into tomorrow. And the good news is, if there is more evolution that does take place with any showers or thunderstorms, indications are it may be poised a bit more south and east of us. So that is some fairly good news. But that's what the information that we currently have as to where the evolution of these storms are going to be popping up, which could be maybe just south and west of the Quad Cities, and then they kind of blow up as they move off to the east, impacting parts of central and southern Illinois and eventually parts of the Ohio Valley as well.
Yeah, it's that good old ring of fire pattern. It's the
Yes.
pattern we wish we would have had about a month ago so that we would actually have some rain around here. But, better late than never, I guess, at this point. But yeah, that's when you get into this kind of a pattern, each day impacts the next day. So these storms we're seeing today will impact what we see tomorrow. Tomorrow's storms will impact what we see on Saturday and vice versa. So likely because you're getting such a powerful storm complex right now, it shoves your storm track a little further to the south, like James was saying, for tomorrow. The question is, can we reload that again maybe for the weekend, nudge it a little further north? So we got to play this day by day, literally, sometimes as many as 2 to 3 times a day with the model runs to see where the storms are going to be.
That's right. And besides, I need to play some golf this weekend, so hopefully that's not going to be the case. Nonetheless, we have to keep an eye on it. You can actually see that bending that's going on now just east of Peoria, and that's no doubt where the strongest of the winds are going on, and that's no surprise with the warning that's taking place, given that we're seeing, especially in the velocity mode. So this has been the storm that has been producing the potential of maybe some wind gusts over 80 miles an hour. As that continues to race its way off toward the east. And like we said, we certainly had some of those reports right near the Highway 34 corridor, but especially to the south, where we saw some of that activity take place. You can see that's where most of the severe weather took place. We had some couple of warnings that popped up in parts of Henderson and even around Warren County, farther south, even around Hancock, has some tornado warnings, as we saw in the velocity mode about 45 minutes ago. Some real decent rotation that was going on from around La Harpe and then extending its way off to the east-northeast. So that was our biggest concern with these storms that are taking place. Good news here, Andrew, we just got it, that they are going to expire the severe thunderstorm warning for the immediate Quad Cities. So that will be some good news, which will be expiring here in about 10 minutes. So we're going to be eventually going here, give the guys in the booth a chance to get ready. We're going to eventually go back to network here, possibly in about a couple of minutes or so. But once again, we're going to see these showers and thunderstorms continue to make their way off to the north and east. Of course, we'll be seeing some of that activity arrive. If we go back to the reflectivity mode and just wind out, because there are some of our hometowns in Carroll, Whiteside, even around Bureau County, all has been quiet for you. But fortunately, you won't have to worry about the severe weather that will be eventually racing its way across your neck of the woods here, going in the next hour or two, okay? So you're going to get some nice rain out of this. You can see some outflow boundaries kind of making its way ahead of these storms. So you are going to get a good rush of wind, but more importantly, you're going to get some well-needed rainfall from that. And you can see Andrew's got the line of where that outflow boundary is. And keep in mind, when we see these outflow boundaries, it could be a signature of or a trigger to maybe a stray shower or even a thunderstorm later in the afternoon or possibly going into the night. Okay, we're going to keep that small chance in, but given the coverage of this, the level of the coverage going into this evening possibly is not going to be too great because it's robbing a lot of that storm energy and instability. Okay, so that's why the chances going into later this evening and overnight are looking pretty small, but it's going to eventually reload heading into tomorrow, and that's why we're going to keep those shower and thunderstorm chances into tomorrow as well. Andrew, any last words before we go back to network?
Yeah, we're just still seeing some of the damage reports coming in from McDonough County. Macomb has got some damage reports here, substantial tree damage around the Western Illinois University campus. Power lines are down, many of which are still being reported live. So probably shouldn't be traveling in and around Macomb, I would say, at this hour, especially near the Western Illinois University campus, where it really seems that storm packed a punch as it moved through there. That's also where we had the same reports of trees snapped at their bases, very large tree limbs down. Hopefully no injuries. I haven't seen anything come across in terms of that, but this was definitely a classic straight line wind event that we typically see this time of year. We're not going to use the D word yet. You can't classify it as such until this thing finishes itself, way down to the south and east of here. But I wouldn't be surprised if it keeps going. It could be known as that, perhaps.
And one more thing, too, I want to point out, if you have any pictures you want to show us, you go to our News 8 app, show us your rain gauge, show us any damage damage that you might have had, especially for our hometowns, our viewers to the south where we saw some of that damage. Very much appreciated. We would love to hear from you, and I know other viewers would like to hear some of that information as well, Andrew.
Yes, we love sharing those pictures. So yeah, if you open up the News 8 app, you can do that quite easily. There's also a Near Me button too at the bottom of the app where you can see pictures from your own neighbors within your hometown, in your neighborhood, of their storm photos. So do that. That's the quickest way to get it on the air too. Make sure you're filling out your location, all that good stuff. And of course, the easiest way to get your forecast too. In fact, there have been so many times that we've been here, my News 8 and my StormTrack 8 app have gone off before the NOAA weather radio goes off to tell me of a new warning.
That's right.
So I literally have it here on my computer screen because I know that's going to give me the first warning before that radio even goes off. So impressive nonetheless. That's why we say you should have that. Best tool you can have.
Any more updates when it comes to news and weather and even sports? We'll have it for you coming up at 5, 6, 6:30, and 10. We'll go ahead and take it now back to regular programming.